I read an interview a while ago that initially you said no, and then you
Yeah.
came back and said yes. And I was
Yeah.
curious, like, what was it that made you change your mind? Like, did you just suddenly have this epiphany realization of a story you wanted to tell, or did something else happen?
Yeah, basically that's it. I mean, on first instinct, it's like make another one. Why? It's like why would you make another one? The last three was kind of perfect. It was like this nice trilogy, it's one of the best trilogies that's been made, probably other than like Lord of the Rings or something. You know what I mean? Um, so my initial instinct was that it was like it's there's no need to do that. Um, but then I started thinking about it, and it's like, the Planet of the Apes franchise is bigger than any director, any actor. It's been around since 1968. You know what I mean? And then there's, of course, the book before that. Um, and so this is a long, long legacy of movies. You know what I mean? Some good, some bad. But all great. All cool stuff. And and so I started kind of opening up my brain to like, okay, what would the next one be? What would you do really? And it's like what I was really most interested in is I was not interested in doing a part four, and I understand the instinct for people who want to see that direct continuation of like, Cornelius, his son, and off he goes and has his grand adventures. And the problem is, the human brain isn't wired for four. You know what I mean? It's like it's beginning, middle, end. Three, it's a perfect little number. And so we really needed to kind of separate ourselves and kind of be our own little kind of distinct chapter. But with that said, I didn't want to lose all this great kind of universe and world building that Rupert and Matt for the last two had created. That universe of Caesar, all the goodwill that had been built up for that character, and and so basically, when I kind of had this kind of epiphany of like, oh, you cut way, way in the future, after. So there's this big giant gap. So the audience gets to catch up now to what the hell has happened since that previous movie, where what's happened to Caesar's legacy. What's he become? What kind of almost spiritual figure has he become? How is myth and legend kind of starting to grow? Apes. I always kind of said that my kind of original pitch was sort of it was apocalypto with apes, and that what I meant was like a very naive, kind of isolated, character who is kind of like extraordinary circumstances kind of are thrust upon him and sent him out on this big grand adventure of a kind of awakening of a larger world out there. You know what I mean? So it's not exactly apocalypto now. It's obviously a change since then, but it's not like a revenge movie, for instance. It's not that. But that sense of like a small point of view that gets expanded and it kind of has his whole mind kind of blown by the world around him that's changing, is very much kind of the story of this movie. And yeah, so once I came up with that idea, I was like, all these ideas started popping in my head of like, oh, I could have this whole kind of eagle culture. And I always kind of pitched it to people of like, we had the previous three movies were apes in their stone age. What about apes entering into the bronze age? You know what I mean? And like, so it's really great because like they can evolve faster than us, from a society kind of civilization standpoint, because they have all these ruins, these kind of lost treasures just waiting to be rediscovered or re-implemented or whatever it is out in the world, left behind them. So they don't have to figure out how to make metal. They have plenty of resources around them. So, and they also have like occasionally, if you can find it, little pockets of knowledge that are kind of just waiting to be rediscovered. And so I love that idea of a kind of a sense of a sense, essentially like a dark ages that happened after Caesar died, where things were lost. And we've had this in our own human history where like, people have discovered great scientific kind of, things, and then it's lost for 400 years before someone discovers it again. You know what I mean? And so I love that kind of sense of like kind of mirroring kind of our march as a species, our march through kind of, civilization, through modernity, you know what I mean? And kind of witnessing that through apes. And so, thinking about that, it's like, okay, we've got the previous three kind of movies that were really the kind of the beginning in the timeline. And then we got the 68 version all the way 2,000, 3,000 years later after this. We're just kind of on our way towards that other version, just a little baby step, I think there's still so many more movies that they could make, after this and continue it on. But choosing kind of a new characters, a new story, a kind of essentially kind of a new tone, it just helps us be our own thing. You know what I mean? I think it would be death to be constantly just tied to those previous three movies, because you can't be compared to those three. They're great. They're perfect. They're on their own. And so it's best for us to have a little bit of distance, but still kind of be honored, kind of be tied to them, have one foot in that world, I guess, where we get to kind of honor what came before us in a way. And I don't know. I hope it's the right choice for people. And I hope they like the choice. And of course, they can always go off and do another Cornelius prequel somewhere. And that was kind of the thinking behind it. And then once we had that kind of burst of inspiration, that's when I told it to the studio, and I even had the title. You know what I mean? I came in with I had two pieces of artwork that I kind of put together, and I was like, okay, I think I got it. Let me tell you all this, blah blah blah. Here it is. It's either Empire of the Planet of the Apes or Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And I was like, we can't do Empire because obviously, Empire Strikes Back. But it had a great ring to it, because that is kind of what it's about. It's about the first kingdom of the Planet of the Apes forming, this king ape, Proxima Caesar. I didn't have all the information and stuff. I didn't have all these little story things. It wasn't until Rick and Amanda, who were the previous three writers, I kind of brought them into the fold. And, Emma was the first one that said, okay, you got to tell all this stuff to Rick and Amanda and see what they think. And who are great people. And obviously they wrote the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and were producers and writers on the following movies after that. And so it was great to have kind of that DNA and their kind of wisdom and sort of, writing chops and producing chops to help us kind of move forward. And so they're the ones who suggested, well, we just finished, Avatar with Josh Friedman. And they suggested getting him to write the first draft. And so that's when the next meeting happened. I remember going to the restaurant, and this kind of, Josh is this great kind of almost curmudgeonly, but in a very nice way, kind of writer, and we kind of laid out the kind of the broad ideas, the broad strokes of it all, and he's like, oh, cool. You want to make a Kurosawa movie? And I'm like, I guess so, sure. And he's like, let's do it. And so he jumped in, and we kind of talked a lot for several months, just kind of kicking around how all the pieces could fit together, and different inventions and stuff that he had, different ideas he had. And it was Josh really that kind of cracked how to kind of lay it all out in a story form. And then after that, we just kept marching forward and working on the drafts, and until ultimately Disney said, go make it,